Welcome to Live Talk with uh, Anita Williams Fourier and Overseer LaShara Taylor. We're just so glad to have you here with us today. We have a great program, and my co host is going to host for us tonight. She's going to talk about something that some of us have experienced, and I don't know where the noise is coming from. Amen. Um, she's going to talk about, they are going to talk about some things we have all experienced in one way or the other. And I just experienced the opportunity to have hospitals to work with me. And I know they're going to tell us a whole lot that we don't know. I had no idea the working of hospice and what they do. And my co-host helped me out a whole lot. So I'm not going to take up a lot of time. First, I'd like to give honor to our presiding bishop, Bishop R.J. Presley and Lady Kate Presley, and all of the officials of the Church of the Kingdom of God, and all of you. Thank you so much for watching. And at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Overseer LaShara Taylor.
Well, good evening again. Thank you all so much for joining us on tonight. And we're going to be discussing a subject that some have been fearful of, a subject many just don't understand, many have shied away from. So tonight, my guest, I will start with Miss Kendra Lumpkin. She's an RN. She has worked in hospice. We've all worked together. Janet Smith, whom I currently work with, is a hospice chaplain. Miss Virginia Sharp, she still works in the field. Um, She's an associate director working in hospice, and none other than Miss Mona Thornton. She was a caregiver for her mother. So I just thank you all so much for just accepting the invitation for us just to talk tonight about hospice. And Miss Virginia Sharp, if you don't mind, I will start with you because many times I'll say the referral process starts with you. You know, you go out, you educate, kind of inform families what to expect. So can you just tell us a little bit about, I guess, say when one wants to come into hospice, what's your role? How do you kind of, I say, sell hospice?
Okay, thank you so much, LaChera. I am Virginia Sharp, like LaChera says. So nice to meet you all. Thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of such a delicate situation, but also such one that is dear and near to my heart. I am an associate director of business development, and my role is that I go out and I do marketing to referral sources, which are doctors, hospitals, assisted livings, basically anywhere you name it, churches, that we can educate. Different organizations about our services and what we have to offer. So if a patient is wanting to come on hospice services, they are referred to us by either one of those sources, and anybody can make a referral to hospice, but we need an order from a physician to say that the patient is appropriate for hospice services, as well as to admit them to hospice services. Two physicians have to certify that the patients are appropriate and that they will be able to be under the scope of the hospice philosophy protocol. And the philosophy of hospice is life expectancy. It's a specialized form of care for patients with a life expectancy of 6 months or less. However, and I always tell people expectancy because none of us know when we're going to leave here. So that is the word that I want you to hold on to versus being so afraid of the hospice word. And the way I explain hospice services is it's the advanced care services. As a matter of fact, it's the highest level of care that a patient can receive in the home setting. We hear a lot of home health, and the difference between the two, home health teaches someone like a caregiver how to do something like medication administration or wound care or just anything that they can teach somebody how to do, and when they get out of the home. Our goal is to get into the home with the patients and be with them until either they do too well for us, we have to take them off of services, or until God calls them home. So the protocol for it, the referral process for it is fairly easy. If you know someone or a physician that you're going back and forth to, and you would like to have someone referred, all you have to do is reach out. You can call me or any company's hospice reps or whatever, and you can just tell them I have a patient that I would like to be referred over to hospice, and we'll walk you through the entire process. Most of the time, for me, I like to do and take over, and I'm not going to say take over, but I like to take the burden off of the referral source or the patient or the family at that particular time to try to help them and assist them more so, and have the process where it's a very easy and smooth process for them, and they really don't have to do anything beyond the making the call. Once they make the call, then I'll make some calls for them. I'll let the physicians know they've called, they would like services, and how can we get an order to evaluate them and admit them if appropriate. So that's the streamline in a nutshell of how the referral process goes.
Well, thank you, Miss Virginia Shaw. Miss Kendra. Miss Kendra, she worked with me as a hospice RN case manager. I do know, hospice is challenging. We have some challenging days, times. So, Miss Kendra, if you can just share your experience as a hospice nurse, and what has your experience been? I say the time that you work with hospice. Kendra, great hospice nurse, very, very good hospice nurse. So if you would just share your experience as a hospice nurse, Kendra.
Okay, again, my name is Kendra, and I have worked with Miss Lachero, also Miss Janet, and also with Mona. Um, I have been a hospice nurse, but and I'm currently a travel nurse for home health. And I always tell everybody this because I go into several homes and I can see the challenges that family are facing. And I always try to ease into the conversation because some of my patients and families, they're not there, but you can tell when they need that higher level of care. So, majority of the times, as a travel nurse right now in home health, most of the directors will come to me when it's time to have that crucial conversation with family members and patients. And my goal is when I'm talking with the patients to let them know, just like to piggyback on what Ms. Sharp says, the expectancy is 6 months or less. But I always tell family members, like you said, there's no expiration date. But our goal while we are in the home is to provide that higher level of care that that family member or that patient needs at that time. And I always tell them we're not just providing care for the patient, we're providing care for the family in general, because like you said, it's as a whole. If we can be there for the family, it helps to take a burden off of them because we all need that extra loving care during that process. And speaking from being a hospice nurse, I mean, I have grown attached to a majority of my patients. That is just where my heart is. I love with all my heart, and it can be challenging because, like you said, you get so attached. I had this one family member, a patient. He couldn't remember my name, but towards the end, he would always tell his sister, I need my nurse. I don't want another nurse. I need my nurse. So you grow attached. And with loving that family member and loving that patient, it just brings me a little bit closer to the whole process of being a hospice nurse. And it leads me to my path. And like you said, and still to this day, regardless, my heart is always with hospice. Because to me, no matter what I'm doing, I'm always giving that extra care because being in a situation of losing a family member and losing a family member suddenly versus actually being able to come in as hospice and give them that time that they need with that patient. That is what so many miss all the time because they wait to the last minute and they're not able to enjoy the last minutes with their family. So that's why I always, try to get in as soon as possible and encourage family members to take that time to allow us to come in and help them so they're able to enjoy the time that they have left because those are the memories that they want to remember.
Awesome. And before I go to Janet, Kendra and Virginia, can you all kind of, if you can think of one right off, there are many, I'll say, myths out there about hospice, untruths about hospice. Well, I heard this, patient on hospice, you give them this or you give them that, they may go ahead and pass away. So can each of you, if you can think of one, I'll say untruth, regarding hospice care that some people may have heard, heard when talking about their family member being referred to hospice. And that may be a drawback for them not wanting hospice because of. Can either of you think of maybe one, I'll say a myth that is just absolutely not true about hospice care?
So I'll go first and I'll tell you, one of the things we hear a lot of is, are you going to take them off all of the medications? No, we're not. The medications are evaluated and by the clinical manager, and Kendra can attest to this. They evaluate the medications to see if it's something they can change around, if the patient really even still needs that particular medication or whatever. But no, we do not go in and take a patient off of all medications. That's not what we do. Another one is, there is no injection that I can give you to make you leave this earth. That's unethical. That's unheard of. It's, and we don't do anything like that. That's nothing that we do. We allow death to happen, an end of life, the natural process of it. That's what hospice is really about. Are there medications to help patients in a time of distress? Yes, to calm them, to keep them from being so agitated and those types of things. But the case managers always have conversations with patients and families about medications, what we're doing, how we're doing it, and and the need for the medication. So if people hear the word morphine and they freak because they think for a fact that we're going to be going ahead and trying to take a patient's life with morphine, we cannot do that. We cannot do that. So we would never ever do that. And one other thing that I could think of is, and I hear these all the time in my conversations with patients and families from the front end. Can I go back to the hospital? Yes, if that's what you choose to do, you can call 911. You can go to the hospital. You do have to come off of hospice services if you have been admitted. You do have to sign a form, what's called a revocation form. That means we're taking you off of hospice services for you to be treated inside the hospital, because that is a billing issue. We bill Medicare for these services. So therefore, in order for the hospital to treat you and give you what you need, you do have to come off of hospice in order for that to happen. And you can be evaluated to see if you qualify to come back on services at that particular time when you come back into the home setting.
Awesome. Kendra, can you think of one? Just
Pretty much, Virginia hit on everything. The biggest myth is on the morphine. A lot of patients
mhm.
and family think, okay, you coming in, I heard y'all gonna give them morphine and they're gonna die. I don't want my family member on hospice, because as soon as y'all give them that medication, they're gonna leave here. And that is one of the biggest myths. And like picking back on what Miss Virginia said, we do bring medications into the home. They're not given. They're there as a as needed basis. And whenever they need that medication, and that is truly for comfort. And the medication is not given in high dosages where it debilitates the patient. It's there just to keep them comfortable, to help with their anxiety. And I always tell patients like this, no medication is going to make you leave this world if it's not your time. And medications are not given in those high dosages that will make you leave this world. Your body reacts when God knows it's time for it to react to the medication.
Yes.
I have a question. My question is, the patient is not eating or drinking. Why other means of giving them food is not done?
It should be done. There are other ways to give patients food and feeding. A lot of them have what's called a peg feed. At that particular time, it's a nutritional means to feed them via a tube. But then some families choose, and when they choose care and comfort, they have the right to actually say they don't want to receive a whole lot of anything. They choose to go naturally. They choose not to eat. Families choose not to have pig insertions done for feeding, but there is another means to get a patient to eat, and that is a peg feed. So tube feeding that goes into the straight into the stomach, and it's either it can be a bolus or it can be done by a pump.
But if they become unresponsive, then, because the patient has to be alert in order to take in anything by mouth.
Yes.
Correct. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because
And we
some
never
do get
want
it.
to, right, and we never want to give a patient or try to force feed a patient when it comes to that point, because that puts them at risk for aspiration, pneumonia, things that could amplify increasing their risk of dying sooner than that we're supposed to. When a patient stops eating and drinking, that's another part of that patient transitioning,
Yes.
meaning that it's imminent, meaning that death, we don't know when it's coming, but that is a way of that their body's shutting down, when the way that they have made peace and know that it's time for, or they're getting ready to transition to go home.
And
Oh,
one other thing in reference to eating and drinking, we've seen patients not eat or drink for days, and they still survive.
Yes.
So
mhm.
doesn't mean just because they stop eating today that they're going to leave us in a minute. No, because I've seen patients last as long as 10 and 12 days without food or water.
Yes.
Mhm.
Look here,
Yes. Awesome.
one other myth that we can solve for your listeners right now is when they hear the word hospice, they automatically think death.
Yes.
That is not what that means. That means that the patient at that particular time needs a higher level of care and qualifies for a higher level of care. Does not mean that they're going to leave me today, tomorrow, in a minute. We don't know that. All it means is that we're able to offer them a higher level of care in the home setting, and that's
And
it.
yes, and we've had patients on hospice services for 3 years
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
and longer, till it gets to the point where it's like, okay, you are now getting ready to graduate back to home health.
Uh-huh.
And when bottom line, they say, you kicking me off? Yeah, I'm kicking you off
You're doing too well.
because you still have a purpose. So we're gonna go ahead and move you back to home health. So that, like Miss Virginia said, home hospice does not mean you're dying. It you means you need a higher level of care at that time. We love on you, work on getting you back. You have that where you come back. Guess what? We kick you on off and you go back to home health, and we wish you well, and but we are still there for you and your family. Versus Miss
Yes.
Janet talks about chaplain coming in and still being that support system for that family after being discharged.
Awesome. Okay, Miss Janet, it's your turn. And, I have to tell, if I go before her, I have to let families know Janet is not coming to preach. Because they always say, I do not want anybody coming to preach to me. I have to let them know, even though she is identified as the chaplain, but she is coming just to offer that spiritual support. All right, Miss Janet.
Um, yeah, that's absolutely right. I mean, my job is emotional and spiritual support, but it's not pushy. It's not, okay, you better get it right or else, it's just going with what the patient and the family's needs are when it comes to spiritual support. And, I think that it's a really beautiful thing that whoever designed hospice in the first place built this into the model. And so the chaplain has to be a part of the team. Now, you can decline that. It's not like, the patient has to get the nursing care every so many days, so it's optional. And a few people, don't want the chaplain coming. Maybe they have enough spiritual support from their own church and prefer their own pastor. But the majority, I want to say like 95% of people, um, patients and families recognize, yeah, I really need that emotional and spiritual piece in addition to maybe what my church and family members are providing. So a lot of my role is, I might read scripture, just something very encouraging, reminding, the patient of God's presence. Of course, pray with them. And then the emotional support. You know, it is a tough time for these patients and families. And a lot of times the caregivers, whoever that might be, maybe a spouse, maybe a daughter or son, they just need someone to talk to, you know, someone that can validate their feelings and provide that emotional piece to them. And so I feel like that emotional piece is just as big a part of what I do as the spiritual side.
Awesome, awesome. And just share, Janet, was it last week? I think two patients wanted to give their life to, was it two patients just last week?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Just a little over a week ago. And again, it was nothing pushy. You know, I had been talking with the one gentleman kind of off and on for 6 months, really, and just saying, you know, consider this. If you've never done this before, you've never given your life to Christ, and he wasn't ready. So I just kept praying and just kind of kept gently talking to him about that, you know, when I would visit. Maybe not every time I would visit with him, but, you know, finally he said, yes, I do
Yeah.
want to pray. And then the other patient is very new to us, but um, I think he just kind of knew, you know, it was only my second visit with him, but I think he just kind of knew, you know, yes, my health is really declining and I need to do this. I need to get this settled. So that was a really joyous day,
Yeah.
especially since both of them in one day, you know.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
very
Awesome,
exciting.
Janet. Yes, thank you so much. And last we have Miss Mona. Miss Mona took care of her mom in the home, you know, along with her mom was on hospice care with us. And Miss Mona is just going to share with us her experience as an actual caregiver to her mother. Miss Mona, thank you for joining us.
And I have to say, you know, it hospice actually started with me about 30 years ago when with my dad
Oh,
was under hospice, and you know it wasn't really the same as what it was with my mom, but I had it was good to have it with him. And at that time my mother was the caregiver, and she was burned out and it was hard, and I was having to go over there a lot. We also 10 years ago had my father-in-law. But they waited almost too late. You know, the way Kendra and them were talking about how people are scared of it. And he was only on it a week, but we still got that hospice service. But mom, you know, talking about the ones, I think she was on the service for 2.5 years. In fact, they were talking about discharging her, and her poor heart just started just giving away. But hospice was a blessing to me. I think it's God given. These ladies, well, the Cheryl, Janet, and even Kendra were there with me throughout, you know. And you're talking about and it was good. I think they were good for me just as much as they were good for mom. And Janet and LaCheryl had specials going the whole time. They were they would sing to mom, and it would just be such a blessing. And she was just so happy because she loved to sing, and she loved the company, and she loved Janet coming and spreading the word. And you know, she loved the nurses too and the care. And I'm a nurse myself, and actually a home health nurse. But when it come to that, I didn't want to be the nurse. I wanted to be the daughter. And sometimes it was very difficult. And I thought, I'll be honest, I thought I was ready. I was prepared. I'm going to do this. I'm going to be all right. But I'll have to be honest, when um, mom, uh, she had a light stroke, and she went from us always getting her up and doing, and she was never one to stay in bed, to all of a sudden she just very quickly just had a stroke. And she lasted for about a week, and you were asking about the feeding. I mean, she was unable to eat, she was unable to drink. All I could do is sit there and hold her hand, and there's times that Cheryl and Janet was there and came and seen her right there at that last minute. They saw how she was before, and they also were there towards the end. I did a lot of praying. I had to be, and you were talking about medications, that was something I thought, well, I'm not going to have to do all that. Well, I saw that I had to give her the morphine and the anxiety medicine because I saw how it relaxed her. And not only did it relax her, it made me feel better, but then it also made my family feel better. And it was good to have those resources there that was available. And I don't know if Kendra remembers, but she was supposed to come and see Mom the next day. And well, she passed away that night, and it was like around 10 o'clock at night, and somebody was 24/7 was on call. And I had this fear, oh no, I'm going to have to sit here and wait and for somebody to come, but I didn't. I mean, it wasn't that long. They I forgot her name, but she was very pleasant. She came, and she was surprised that I wanted to help her get Mom ready. And I don't know, it just felt I've been the one caring for all this time. It was even at death, I wanted to be there for her. And I'm not going to say it was easy. It wasn't. That part was, I think, one of the hardest for me was, but I think with the help that hospice had preparing us for what was coming, for what to expect, for what I needed to tell my family. I think we were so much more prepared than we would have been if we did not have hospice. It was a blessing. You sometimes it's strange to hear death is a blessing, but hers was, because she was ready to see Jesus. And if you knew her, she would sing, "What a day that'll be." And it was so, and Cheryl and Janet had to sing that with her, but they made it such a blessing and such a wonderful time that, it wasn't sad, but it was happy time for her. And I just appreciated all that was done during that time.
All right, Miss Mona. So you can see Miss Mona definitely had that experience taking care of her mom. And of course, myself as a social worker, just go in, some families are very needy. And then you have some of those families that don't need a whole lot, but still you want to make your visits, offer that support, and always ask, is there anything that I can help you with today? And sometimes, you may have to write a letter for a caregiver to get out of jury duty. You may have to look into their disability benefits if they've already applied for disability and still waiting. Their services through the VA, their services through DFACS. Some don't have life insurance, some don't have a plan. And then that's when you have to have those hard conversations. Sometime, have you had conversations with your family about your wishes? Your end of life. There is no money, no life insurance. That we do encourage, please talk to whatever funeral home you choose. Go ahead and have that conversation to start a payment plan. But many are resistant to having, the conversation, about funeral planning, about end of life. But social workers, like I said, we do, many sometimes confuse me as the DFACS caseworker. I say, no, I am not DFACS. I am the hospice social worker through the company. So we just, go into homes and just do what we can do. Just be there for them. We can't go in judging. We know many situations, home environments are not as mine and is not as yours. So we just have to go in. We have to meet our patients and our families where they are and just offer them all the care and the support that we can give them while they are still here with us. So, y'all, this is the end of our podcast for tonight. We thank you all so much, everyone, for your information, your expertise that you all share on tonight with us. Thank you all so much. Pastor, do you have any final comments before we close
Well,
out?
yes, this is just awesome. We need to know, even though I was a pastor, one of the most difficult thing I suffered with was I was told that I need to tell my brother it was just the two of us. It's okay for him to go. And I just stood, I said, how can I say that? But I prayed about it and I said, Melvin, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be okay. It's time. You can let me go, or I can let you go. And 2 hours later, he did pass. And so it's things like that. I had no idea that I should say those kind of things or to help him, I guess, release and leave. It was an experience. I never had an experience in my life. And it's difficult, but thanks to hospice and LaCheryl for helping me through that process of caring for him and then watching him leave me. Thank you all for all the work that you do. Don't think that you're not being noticed and we come up with all these things because I had no idea about hospitals and I was upset and I just thought they should have been doing this until they just calmed me down and say, this is what we do. And so thank you all for your service. It's well appreciated. Again, you are doing a great job.
All right. But this is it, ladies. Thank you all so much for joining us on tonight. Miss Mona, Miss Kendra, Miss Virginia,
Yes.
Janet, thank you
Thank
for
you.
taking out time on this Tuesday evening to join us.
Yes.
And we will
And
be sharing this. Go ahead, Pastor.
Go ahead. I was just
Oh, we will be sharing this so you all can view it later. I will share it, Pastor will share it. So you all can go back and view it as well as share it yourself. Yes.
Yes. Thank you so much. Once again, thank you for viewing. And remember, we love you with the love of the Lord, and we do see in you the glory of the Lord. Yes, we love you with the love of the Lord. God bless. See you next week.
Good night. Thank you all.